My name is Anne Hiatt. I'm the executive director and one of the founders of Opera on Tap. I'm based here in Brooklyn, which is where we also started our organization about 18 years ago. I ended up kind of landing in a group of friends that was doing just a wide array of things.
Mhm.
And I think it was also because, because I did, a double kind of degree thing where I was doing voice and also doing something in the humanities. Like
Mm.
I just managed to meet a lot of people outside of the School of Music, as in
Yeah.
addition to other people who weren't necessarily opera singers or classical instrumentalists. Like there were a lot of people in the jazz scene and whatnot. And I just was drawn to that. I
Yeah.
found myself drawn to that. And I feel that it has continued sort of as a thread through my life and career is that, kind of exploring beyond boundaries is important to me, just creatively speaking, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. I mean, I also think back, I think, I did my freshman year in the dorms, and that was probably a good thing, although, I didn't love it at the time. And I was super excited to move to my little house with a
Yeah,
porch on Fest Street, or
right.
whatever after that. But I did meet a lot of people outside of the music school in the dorms.
Okay.
So, that kind of started me in a different way.
Yeah.
And just in comparison, because when I finished my undergrad at IU, I went to Manhattan School of Music, so I moved to more of a conservatory setting, and it was a complete culture. Like it was such a difference.
Right.
And in some ways, like I think that my experience at IU was much more something in my own personal wheelhouse. Like
Yeah.
that I liked the idea of meeting more people and going outside of the boundaries of a very siloed degree. I mean, Freddie's Bar and Back Room, so that the original location is no longer there. It's been replaced by the big basketball stadium in
Mm.
Brooklyn.
Mm. Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like, it's just it was a really honky tonk kind of eclectic bar. A lot of artists were behind the bar, so that helped, like
Mhm.
just knowing there were creative people working in the space and were open to this idea. And they were already doing kind of interesting nights, like, comedy nights, like cringe nights where people like read from their your high school diaries out loud, things like that. So they were open to weirdness, I guess.
Yeah.
And, opera's a little weird to most people, I would say. I think it still is.
Mhm.
But we that first night was so much fun. I mean, I've always loved curating recitals and things like that. So we really just kind of landed on this, like, well, let's just do an Italian night,
Nice.
and put together just like a theme of Italian songs and just invite all of our friends, who were also emerging out of our master's degrees and doing the same thing I was in terms of freelancing and hustling and and all of that. Just like come to the bar and sing something, and let's just keep it all Italian and, tell the audience what you're singing. Like we just kept it very simple and bare bones and that continues to be what it is, like I
Mhm.
think it's just a really casual way for people to kind of get to know the art form and get to know the people who are doing it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kind of putting a little bit of a human face on it.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's really important, like
Yeah.
the idea that you could be up close to singers, I think was such a shift for a lot of people that already were opera fans,
Mhm.
and for others it was just a really palatable way to kind of, you could walk in, you could walk out, nobody was telling you to be quiet, like it was like
Yeah.
just the whole point was like just have fun. And
Yeah.
the idea for the artists as well was like this is your opportunity, like do that aria that you will never get cast for, like just like break out of the mold a little bit,
Right.
right? Because we
Right.
get so stuck in the mold in the classical world, especially when you're just like going to audition after audition after audition, and that's like your performance, for the most
Totally. Yeah.
part. And then maybe you get one gig and that's exciting and wonderful. But
Yeah.
I think that was the whole idea, was just like let's create a very different environment for people to kind of thrive and work on their art form and, try out new repertoire and do it in front of a supportive audience,
Yeah.
not a judgmental
I know.
audience.
Not a panel.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that really continues to resonate. I mean, we are now at, I think we're at 36 chapters now. I mean,
Right.
people
Yeah.
continue to reach out wanting to start new ones. We have two new ones opening, one in South Bend, actually, in Indiana, is they have their first show on the 23rd, and then we have one in Detroit opening up later this month also. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it usually starts with just reaching out. We have a contact form on our website, and we tend to schedule a call. I usually, speak with whoever is a prospective administrator of a local chapter and just kind of get a sense of what they're interested in, why they reached out, why Opera on Tap, what in their community, like, how does it fill a need in their community? And it's kind of over and over again, I get the same response to that. It's just like, we just don't have enough performance opportunities here. There's one regional opera company in town. We're all chorus members of it, but that's it. So like, it's just really this kind of sense of creating opportunities for yourself to really, showcase yourself and your community of artists, what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once they kind of land on a venue, we have a really great network of administrators across the country and now world, which is great. We have a few chapters in Germany. We have our first one in Africa opening, which I'm super excited about. That's
Wow, that's
coming up in
awesome.
2 months. um like we really share concepts and ideas, so there's a lot of cross consulting happening across chapters of like, how did you start and what kind of, like, what's the perfect venue for what we're doing. And we try to make it as easy as possible for people just to start, regardless of if they have any kind of startup financing or anything like that. It's really just like, go low overhead, have a public audition, which, have an opening launch party with the fundraiser to kind of be able to pay your singers and your pianists for the gigs. We try to, make it as easy as possible for people just to get started. We have several chapters now that are commissioning work, that are putting on bigger productions, in interesting locations, things like that, like full productions of operas. So people really have a lot of flexibility and freedom as to how they want to program, depending on what they can program and what kind of local partnerships they have, things like that. I believe that what we have really been leaders on for a while is this concept of changing the perception of what opera is or can be. And I think we have really shown a different way that artists can kind of move through opera and create opportunities for themselves. I think we've also done a really great job of building and highlighting the importance of building communities, through our organization. We have our communities of our chapters and their local artists and their local audiences. Then we have our broader community of chapter administrators, our rosters, of singers across the country and world. Like, it has to be one of the largest around, like, just by sheer numbers. Um, I think those are kind of the two main things that have really been really central to what we have done and what I think we have contributed, to the sector, is this sense of, there are different business models out there. And, artists who are working in this space are creative people, and they can forge those new paths. And, the more we can build more community, more warmth, more inclusion, like bringing more people into this art form, the better it will be. And, I think that the art form itself certainly stands to have more innovation. Like, if you think of theater and dance, like, there's just so many different, styles within, and like, why not opera? Why is opera sort of like in everybody's head? It's one thing, it's like Traviata, it's La Boheme, but it doesn't have to be, right? Like, I mean, yes, those things and all these other things that it can be. And, because it's a multimedia art form, it's multi-sensory. There's so many ways you can take it. As we enter into these new digital, like, landscapes, like, why not integrate more of those types of technologies? It's an art form that allows for that kind of, you know, multi-dimensional creative world building. So Playground Opera is our education arm of Opera on Tap, and it's still very much based in the same concepts of, like, taking it into the community, utilizing spaces where these kids are to, like, put these shows on for their communities, for their peers. That's always been central to that. That serves third, fourth, fifth graders. In the pandemic, we shifted a lot of the learning platforms to digital learning, which it for us has been a big benefit, because we can scale it nationally, even as a small nonprofit. Like we're able to kind of keep expanding the programming into different communities. And in addition to Playground Opera, we're starting to work on a new opera maker project, which is actually what we're working with Dr. Maltese at the Mill Maker Space on, is something for middle schoolers where they actually create their own operas, utilizing a kit of assets we create for them, an opera in a box, essentially. And they're going to put on their own, and create their own stories and write their own music and, use puppets and design costumes for them and learn a little bit about lighting and sound, things like that, really fabrication, like really putting it all together, what production is, in the hopes that every kid that goes through any of our educational programs really comes out seeing all the variety of skill sets that go into production, and hopefully finding themselves inside of that somewhere, whether they be performers, directors, set builders, designers, lighting engineers, etc. So that's the educational component. We've really focused on that side of things of trying to show STEM is part of production. STEM is STEAM. That's one of our focuses. And then in terms of new work, we're commissioning new work here in New York at the sort of main headquarters. And our focus has been on commissioning new work where we're exploring technology integrations as a storytelling component. Right now, we're working on two operas. There's one called Joan of the City, which is basically utilizing the archetype of Joan of Arc, and focusing on women who are experiencing homelessness. And you follow these Joans through the street, and through the technology, you're able to kind of see and hear what she sees and hears, what she sees as the challenges and obstacles that have brought her to where she is. In the hopes that, we're building more empathy and deeper understanding of the issues at hand across so many cities in the country now. And then we also have an opera focused on internet privacy called Looking at You, which I'm really excited about, where we're teaching the audience a lot about, some of the perils of giving all of your data away for free. If it ends up in the wrong hands, what can go wrong? And in that piece, which is also immersive, we data mine the audience in real time if they agree to our terms and conditions, in exchange for a free glass of wine while they're watching the show. And if they agree, then, they give us permission to data mine their public profiles. And, at times during the opera, like you may see your own content pop up on a tablet in front of you, or in the video design on the monitors, or a singer might suddenly sing something at you, like the name of your pet or your birthday, or, things like that. And then at the end of it, we give everybody a privacy best practices kit that was devised by some privacy researchers that we are connected with on that at Carnegie Mellon. So that's sort of just an example of where we're really kind of trying to continue to think outside of the box and, push the form, to its outer limits as much as possible. It's going to start touring beginning as early as the fall of 24. It's getting prepped right now for that purpose. And certainly, like, if you sign up for our newsletter via operaontap.org, we'll keep you up to date as to upcoming performances. And, our website is also a place where people can learn about the various chapters, where they live, when those their shows are and what they're up to.